Yes, I can. I'm a number theorist, and when I started mathematics as a student in the early 1980s, which is quite a while ago, I studied algebraic number theory, and that was something arithmetic of number fields, so fairly restricted class field theory. And as a student, I was a student of Hendrik Lenstra, and in those days, that was my sort of main occupation, but you gradually discover if you get older that mathematics is actually fairly connected. And in those days, there were various developments that actually you find back in the current semester. This was the beginning of the computer algebra system, so people started talking about algorithms, actually computing things, explicit number theory, and the runtimes that would have. That was the more concrete way of looking at, in this case, algebraic number theory. But there was also algebraic geometry in those days that also had a unifying influence. These were the sort of, after Grothendieck style mathematics, people started talking about schemes and formulating geometry in very algebraic ways, and also the equations you solve in number theory can be seen already after Descartes as finding points on curves or on surfaces. And that also played a role. Actually, here in Marseille, there was the coding theory, the group of Gilles Lachaud, and the Goppa codes were invented by Goppa, and these were curves over finite fields. That's sort of geometry, but in a very discrete setting, not a classical complex number geometry. And the point counting is something that we've seen here last week at AGC²T, the conference. So there's all these long lines, things that got interconnected, and being a number theorist nowadays, you can also say that you are an arithmetic geometer. If you do elliptic curves, you can say that geometry, or you can say that it's number theory. And people no longer distinguish between these things as either number theory or geometry. It's one and the same thing. So that is roughly my area. And also for this semester, arithmetic statistics is something that also at least wasn't called arithmetic statistics in those days, but given all the data that people started having, every number theorist could start doing his own computations using these computer algebra systems. There was Paris, there was Magma, and you can assemble your own data and look at them and ask how often something is likely to be solvable or to behave in this way or another way. And my supervisor Lenstra is also the father of the so-called Cohen-Lenstra heuristics. That was in algebraic number theory, the number fields have a class group, a finite abelian group. And you can wonder what these things typically look like. And then you develop heuristics, and Cohen and Lenstra did, and proving heuristics in this case turned out to be very complicated, in the sense that you want to say that something behaves in a random way, subject to whatever limitations there are because of the theorems. And what that means, so a class group is within that limits is a random abelian group, which has no meaning. And to make that into mathematics is exactly what became the theme of arithmetic statistics, which is now much broader. That doesn't only apply to class groups, but also to elliptic curves, abelian varieties, L functions, modular forms was something that became much more fashionable again after having dropped out of fashion. So all kinds of mathematics sort of came together, unified, and you all find this back in the current semester. Yeah, so to start a semester like this, people think that you sort of arrive and start a semester, but as you know, applying for this, I think in my case, I actually looked it up this morning. The beginning for me was an email by David Cole from the I2M here, the local institute, and Samuela Anni, who became my co-chair, whether I would be interested in applying. And October 2020 was exactly after 6 months of COVID, so it was a pretty depressing moment in time, since I had been director of the Math Institute in Leiden, and the institute had more or less closed down because of COVID. There was nobody there anymore, and I had stepped down, and I spent a month in Bonn at the Max Planck, and the rules were so strict that you could go in because you were invited for a month, but you couldn't see anybody. And the afternoon tea did no longer exist, so it felt like a very strange period of time. And organizing such a semester felt like sort of a spark from heaven, a ray of light. Hey, someday, and this was then planned for spring of 23, obviously things would be over by then. But in 2020, it turned out it was still a long way. And actually, the beginning of this semester, I did notice that, especially all the young people who came, were very happy to mingle with people of the same age that hadn't been traveling for 2 or 3 years almost. So it was really something that exactly came at the right moment for me. Yeah, so being a number theorist, you sort of seek the connection with the number theorist at the I2M here in Marseille. So I mentioned the two names of David Cole and Samuel Ani. And as it happens, number theorists at I2M are sort of spread over the university, which includes Aix, where Jean-Morlet is, and Marseille at several locations, and they're in groups that have acronyms that I keep forgetting. But there's actually many number theorists in various shapes, all the way going to crypto and coding and arithmetic geometry and computational number theory, all kinds exist. And the semester was then to be combined with a thematic month, which happens more often, and that was going to be focused exactly in these areas. So we started the semester with an introductory school for PhD students, followed by a week on arithmetic geometry. We did coding, crypto, computational number theory, 5 weeks in a row, getting people together. Sort of that already was the start of a semester for 5 weeks that really did a lot. And so actually the semester involves a lot of organizing as well on the part of the CIRM-Chaire and maybe even more so on the part of the co-chair, the CIRM-Chaire. So as I said, it started all with these 5 weeks in the beginning, and that was followed by the events that were just part of the CIRM-Chaire. There was a workshop on densities, which was a smaller scale thing, and the big conference, the Arithmetic Statistics Conference, was in May, and it was preceded by, again, a school for PhD students, which for me was one of the fun events, just like the previous, the one in early February, where you get 80 or 90 PhD students together from all over Europe, the US. So a very young crowd that actually prepares for the conference which is coming the week after. So in May we had both the school and then the conference afterwards, where the sort of senior people from the area were flown in and had a big conference. And in my particular case, it was combined with a celebration for my 60th birthday. So, well, there was the boat tour on the catamaran, on the harbor front of Marseille, on the Château d'If. It was a very festive event. So this conference and the school were sort of the high points, I might say, of this semester. Yeah, so actually there were very many people that passed through in the semester. So even though I was away from my home institute in Leiden, I saw so many people from that institute coming here, and also many people had connections from the past with Leiden. And given that many groups were involved, we typically had quite big conferences. As I said, the schools for 80, 90, but also the various weeks sort of filled up usually most of the CIRM. So there were very many people, and of course, the most prestigious names. So the Arithmetic Statistics Conference brought people that actually, the Cohen and Lensa I mentioned, so the founding fathers of one of the main topics of the arithmetic statistics, but also the younger people, Alexander Smith, who actually proved part of the Cohen and Lensa heuristics. There was Melanie Wood. Fields medalist Manjul Bhargava gave his talk from Bangalore online, so he couldn't be here, but there were many people sort of that actually form this area, and it feels very much like something that is moving in many directions now. Did I reach my goals? Yeah, of course, that supposes that I had a sort of concrete goal I wanted to reach, and if you compare it, since this year I'm on a sabbatical, and the fall I was in Bonn at the Max Planck Institute, and here I was for the Jean-Morlet. And that is very different. If you're at Max Planck, you're there to do your research and you're focused on yourself and you can do what you want. Whereas here at the Jean-Morlet, you become an organizer of a whole semester. And that is something that is very different. So you interact with many people, and there's all kinds of things that need to be organized and arranged. And you also need a co-chair to actually make this happen here in Marseille. And the whole cooperation with the CIRM, all the people here, is also something that is, for me was new. I'd been there before, 30 years ago, and several times, but now you feel like part of the crowd a little bit. And that's a very different feeling. And the goals, if I get back to your question, many things are now moving. So after it's over, we'll work on proceedings, and I've talked to people that want to continue things. I'm organizing a week with Samuel already in October to get back with a few people, continue things we started during the semester. I could finish certain things that I planned to do, but out of the long list of things that I thought I could do in 6 months. As always happens, there's still a large part of that list that remains unfinished, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, so scientific progress is something that depends how you measure it. So that means that if we get all the various proceedings from the semester, there will be sort of measurable things, papers that will be published. That is still down the road at this point. I think one of the more important things is that actually getting so many people together, you see that people start talking and cooperating, and I think that's the seed for the future. And it also struck me that this semester had very many young people. Not just because we had these PhD schools that brought them in the beginning of the conference, but also the conferences themselves. Maybe it's because I'm feeling old myself in the sense that in the beginning the students were just as old as I was, and that has changed over time, obviously. But now I see that there's many young people that are actually, think of locally, there's the group of Gilles Lachaud, there was Yves Aubry, he is still there, just like I'm still there, but the younger people are now taking over. And younger people means that after the Thursday night bouillabaisse, you may have the karaoke. And I think that we did start the karaoke as part of certain weeks as part of this program. And I expect that this will now happen more often, despite the fact that, of course, in the Grand Auditorium we don't eat and drink, but we can do karaoke. Yeah, so the way you phrase it as being a foreigner and this unknown community of these scary French people, in my case I was a little bit prepared in two different ways. I started my career in the early 90s in the CNRS in Besançon, so I had been exposed to French people already, and as it happens my wife is French, and that also accounts for the fact that I can speak French a bit, as you may have noticed, and normally we would have spoken French rather than English at this point, but now there's other people listening at us. So I didn't feel very sort of foreign to French way of life, and maybe it's also one of the reasons I enjoyed it very much. And being in a different crowd of people, you sort of see that many things that are sort of different, but all problems that happen in all institutes all over the world that we have in Leiden. There's the same discussions going on in Marseille. Yeah, if there's positions opening up, who's got into these positions, how we're going to arrange this. People quarrel about that. They don't always agree. Things go wrong, but in the end it all works out. And overall, I must say that the CIRM staff, Olivier Barbarou and Caroline Pfaff, who is especially there for the Jean-Morlet, were extremely helpful, and it feels like, as in Dutch you would say, a warm bath. I don't know, that doesn't sound like English, right? A warm bad. That the fact that Europeans and in general mathematicians realize, especially with CIRM, that it serves a purpose to speak foreign languages, and even though mathematically, scientifically, English is the overarching language, you do realize there's all these subgroups of people who share a language. And most of the people working in place A and being from country B realize that they may want to speak that language as well. And also for me, seeing that the Jean-Morlet is organized by someone who's German, so then I'm not going to speak French with a German lady, so you speak German. And whenever you want to live in France for 6 months, I think if you don't speak French, it is of course theoretically possible, but to make the most of it, you need to be able to at least speak some French or understand what's going on, just to be part of it. And of course you have more European languages than anyone can speak, but the more you know, the better. And that linguistic aspect became very clear, at least to me, during these 6 months. There's more to life than just English. Yeah, so when things are over, it's also the end of my sabbatical, which means I go back to Leiden and pick up my sort of, what you would call your regular life, which involves teaching and the normal things. Things did change a bit also in the sense that this year I became a member of the European Math Society Committee on Developing Countries. That's something I've done for at least 10 years. SEMPA in Nice, which has Christoph Ritzenthaler, was also very often here during the semester as a director. I've been teaching in these courses in various developing countries. I think they're now called less developed countries, but it still designates exactly the same countries. And that is something that we have been talking on. Last week there were many representatives of the IMU and the EMS dealing with developing countries, and these initiatives are probably going to play a more important role in my functioning also in Leiden when I get back. So that is one of the things that I will do. And of course I remain the Math Olympiad guy in the Netherlands. All the regular things continue. I think it is a unique program in the sense that there's more chairs of various kinds. This is 6 months, which is relatively long. And it comes with many more responsibilities than the average chair, which means delivering a couple of lectures, inviting a few people, and that's it. This is really much bigger. And I think it's an excellent initiative. It really sort of gives a theme, a program during a semester. If you compare to the normal thing like Oberwolfach has, every week is different, it's all separate things. Here we had 5 weeks in a row, and many people were many weeks during the semester actually at CIRM. And we also had 2-week things where people stayed over during the weekend, which is something that CIRM is not very much used to because they want to close down Saturday morning after breakfast and open up for dinner on Sunday night. So it is something that actually works very well, I think. The feedback I got, at least from people visiting during the semester, that they really appreciated it very much. And it's certainly a program that is worth continuing. It has been there for 10 years already. I'm certainly not the first Jean-Morlet. And also the role, I think, of the co-chair. It's really something that is based. It's not just someone who's flown in from far away and starts something. It has a long preparation, 2 years almost in my case. And the co-chair is indeed essential, since the organizing things locally in France, even if you've been exposed to French people before, still can be fairly complicated. You get the possibility to rent the little house, the house of the gardener, the former gardener, which was in ruins 10 years ago, but which has been remodeled, and it's like a fairy tale house, a small house, 3 stories, and on the border of the Parc National des Calanques. So you're half an hour from Marseille by bus, but you're also 15 minutes from the Belvédère overlooking the Calanques, which is one of the most beautiful coastal regions, I think, that we have in Europe. So living here for 6 months, especially from the north, I used to live in the Netherlands, where January is very different from what you find here in Marseille. So from that point of view, I think it's one of the best positions you can have if you can arrange it for yourself to be here for 6 months, depending on your local circumstances. It is ideal. So I can recommend it to anybody. So please keep it going.